I represented Ukrainians in the United States Congress, and proudly so. I went to Ukraine. I met with people. I stood in the square in Ukraine in defense of journalists who were under attack there, one of whom was killed, Gonzaga. And so I just felt that, Ukrainians have a right to exist. They have a right to their own country. And what's happened is this is being twisted, and suddenly Ukraine becomes a bloodbath of a chessboard, where these innocent people are just being used as pawns in a game of nations. And I resent that. I mean, I resent that on behalf of every decent person who's trying to keep their family together in Ukraine and who doesn't want to be dominated by anybody, US, Russia, anybody, and they just want to live their lives. But because there's a game of nations going on, and the US was concerned about Russia's pivot to Asia, well, guess what? This whole thing is blowing up in the face of the West. Russia's not, we forced Russia to pivot to Asia. And now, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, then Saudi Arabia. There's a whole new world being formed. And the catalyst of it is the misjudgment that occurred about Ukraine and the effort to try to control Ukraine that began in 2014, that most people aren't aware of, I would say.
Let's talk about the press, because you spoke about going back to your constituents as an anti-war candidate and feeling blowback. But isn't that because essentially we have a press that is locked out anti-war critics?
Well, I think it was a librarian of Congress, Daniel Boorstin, who wrote a book about the media being spear carriers for the government. And that was true generations ago, and it's true today. And that's a problem. When you don't have when you don't have many alternatives that present a different point of view, you're locked into a worldview that might be based on a falsity. And I'll give you a great example. Go back to Iraq, because I was really involved in that, in challenging the narrative right from the beginning. And, I did my homework. I saw that and I gave Congress a memo on October 2nd, 2002, that said, look, there's no proof that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. Moreover, Iraq didn't have anything to do with 9/11, with Al-Qaeda's role in 9/11, didn't have the intention or capability of attacking the United States. So what is this about? And I talked to hundreds of members of Congress about it. But the drumbeat in the media, war, 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 from the White House, war, war, war. No one bothered, and this is what so many people heard. It was just drowned out. And so, I've seen this dynamic before. And the media, we have a heavily mediated society, even more so today than 20 years ago. And we also know that the government can have legions of people working computers, sending out messages that praise those who are for the war and attack those who aren't. We're living in a hall of mirrors here when it comes to trying to find out what is really going on. And so how do you figure it out? Well, you do your homework, but you also have to trust your gut, your intuition too. And when I looked at what happened in Iraq, that led me to understand what was happening in Libya, what was happening in Syria, and then I do some more homework. William Blum, Chalmers Johnson, and others who did the studies, case after case after case, of U.S. interventions that were all about lies. And our country, I love this country, and it is being it's being done a disservice by people who in power, who have made book with interest groups who are going forward just to cash in on war. And I think it's horrific. And in this case, Chris, we're playing with the flash of World War III. There are sometimes I think that people in the White House are like something out of The Sorcerer's Apprentice. They're playing with they've taken this broom and they're moving out chemical forces around that are going beyond that can easily go beyond their control. And so I'm also concerned that things could spin out of control even now with respect to Russia, with respect to China, North Korea. And what a tragedy. What an immense human tragedy, when the truth of the matter is we must find a way to live together. As John Kennedy said, we have to, learn how to live together as brothers and sisters, or we perish together as fools.